Hey everybody, Leah Klett here with the Christian Post. My guest today is country artist John Rich, and we're discussing his brand new song, Revelation. Well, John, I really appreciate you taking some time to speak with me. I heard your interview on Tucker Carlson, and I said I have to text Jules because I rarely hear people be so bold calling out the church and calling out lukewarm Christianity, especially not a mainstream musical artist. And you did that in such a way that I just thought was incredibly powerful.
Well, it's the truth. So there's that. I mean, I think the truth most of the time is an uncomfortable thing to say. It's a lot easier to come with a version of it or just skip the parts about it that you don't want to talk about. But yeah, when I was talking to Tucker, I mean, you saw his expressions. I mean, he's just his eyes are bugged out, going, he can't believe we're having this conversation. And when you go back to the scripture that says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and turn from their evil ways, I'll come and heal their land. That's a paraphrase, but that's basically what it says. And I said, man, he's not saying the devil's people. He's saying his people, my people. If my people will turn from their wicked ways. So that means that Christians can also have wicked ways. I mean, we're still just people, and if you look back through the history of the Bible, I mean, there's many, many times that he brought down serious punishment on his people because they had gone so far out of bounds, so far off the path, that and they wouldn't listen. And so the only thing he could do at some point was to smack them so hard that they woke up and repented and turned back. And so I do think that is why we're seeing what we're seeing happen in our country right now. I really do, that we're just overrun by all this wickedness everywhere you turn. And I think it's because us as Christians have just stood around and let this stuff go, and to a certain extent have been involved in a lot of it. I think by not pushing back on it, not calling it out, me included, all of us, you become complicit with what's going on. I don't think there's any more time to do that. I really don't. I think we're at a breaking point now that it's you better stand up and you better be heard, because it feels like we're on the edge of going over the edge, at least from how I feel about things.
Well, and you've been in the music industry for a long time. You've been in country. You've sort of dabbled in a little bit of the Christian music industry. But what was it that made you get to the point where you said, "Hey, I need to speak out. I need to challenge the church to rise up"? What was the moment where you felt called to do that?
Because no one else is doing it that I can see. Feel free to point me in the direction, but there may be certain preachers and Christians and churches out there that are pushing back against it, but not in mass. They're not. And in my world, which is, country music, secular music, that's a different crowd than the church crowd. That's just music fans. And there's tens of millions of them, fortunately for me, that know who I am, have listened to my music for a long time. And so I kind of have a different route. I have a different part of their ear. And so, like you said, to kick this interview off, I'm not used to hearing people in mainstream music like that talking about these subjects. I would see if you could find anybody in any music talking about what I talked about with Tucker. I can't find it. And so I think when you see the unchecked wickedness that's going on out there in the world, for instance, Super Bowl halftime shows with just blatant Satanism on the stage, or you see some of the biggest pop acts in the world, and they're out in front of these football stadiums of people, 80,000 people at a time, holding seances, showing up dressed like demons, and they're worshiping the artist. I mean, Sodom and Gomorrah on 20, right in your face, and we're all just horrified by it, as we should be. But who's gonna actually do something to counter that? So to me, I saw that it was time to put something out there to tell the other side of this story, because everything they're doing ultimately gets completely destroyed. It does not last forever. They act like it's going to last forever, but we all know how the book is written. We know how the story ends. Ultimately, they're done at the end of the day. So I think that's where this song Revelation came from. Is a lot of people feel like, including me, that we're in that mode right now of those things could actually now happen. One of the big breakthroughs I had with Tucker was when I told him that for 2,000 years and longer than that, really, because Daniel was writing about it 500 years before Jesus was talking about it, about the end times. People always thought, well, it's almost science fiction. I mean, I know it's true, but I can't imagine how these things could happen. And now with where we are at with technology these days, the ability to communicate to the whole world at the same time, to lock down people's money, buy or sell without the mark of the beast, all that stuff's now possible. When I laid that out to Tucker, man, he just went, that is unbelievable. I said, right? He's like, well, yeah. I said, that's why I'm on your show to talk about this. The Bible is not a fairy tale. It's not a, you know, it's not a science fiction book. I mean, it is the absolute truth. And so we try to understand it as well as we can. But that was definitely a light bulb that uh, tech intertwines within times. Isn't
Mhm.
that interesting? And I think maybe a lot of Christians haven't thought of it that way. And I think when you start making those points and connecting dots, people pick their Bibles up again and they read it again, and now the words are just exploding off the page at them because now they actually know what that's talking about.
Well, I think with the rise of AI, some people are starting to get a little bit scared. But you're saying essentially we are living in the end times and we need to wake up to that.
Well, we've been living in the end times since Jesus left.
Mhm.
I mean, really. But yeah, I think with what's written down in Daniel and Second Thessalonians and Revelation and many other places in the Bible, we can now see how those prophecies can actually manifest in the flesh. We can see it. You're right. With AI, like, what is the beast? What is that? It describes what it is. The best John could do. Imagine 2,000 years ago, you're a old Hebrew man sitting on the Isle of Patmos as an exile from your own country, and you start seeing all this stuff and hearing these messages and seeing visions, and all you know how to write it down is based on what you personally know from living on the earth, however long he had been here. And 2,000 years later, we're reading what he said, trying to decipher exactly what that is, but it's pretty specific. I mean, the mark of the beast. Okay, the mark of the system is what he's talking about. Whatever dominates the earth at that point. The image of the beast, it says, worship the image of the beast. That sounds an awful lot like AI.
Mhm.
AI is an image of something that's real, right? Now, I mean, I don't have the answers to all that, but it's making a lot more sense these days, and maybe that's why the other side is stomped on the gas pedal. It's almost like they're trying to outrun it. They're trying to take us over the edge before any of these things can happen.
You're so bold in talking about these things. Have you gotten backlash for this, or what has the response been from your fans, from people who listen to your interviews?
Oh yeah, there's videos all over YouTube right now from preachers
Mhm.
cutting me apart, man. I mean, taking that Tucker interview and just coming at me with everything they got. One guy was saying John is one of the false prophets we were warned about. I'm like, you got to be kidding me, man. I mean, if you haven't seen the Tucker interview, anybody watching this, go watch it. I'm literally reading right off the book. Like, there's no opinion involved. I'm just reading it. Like when I read Matthew 24, which is where the disciples come to Jesus and they say, hey, what's going to happen before you come back? What's going to be going on in the world? And then the next 36 verses is all Jesus talking, and he's laying it out. This will happen, then this will happen, then that, then that, then this, then this, then this. And he just keeps going. And they are not good things. They are rough situations. And he gets towards the end of it and he says, and then you will see the sign of the coming of man, meaning that's when you'll see me coming back after all these things have happened. And so that's all I did was just read Matthew 24. And man, these preachers came unwound. Now, a bunch of them on the other side went, bingo, that is what it says. That's how it rolls. Fortunately, that conversation of how that all plays out it's not a salvation issue, as we would say. It doesn't determine whether you go to heaven or hell, depending on how you believe that's going to happen. But it is, I would have thought those preachers, even though they disagreed with, I guess, what I read, um, which is hard to believe, but at least they would say, well, you know what? At least John got on the biggest platform in the world and spoke the truth to millions and millions of people, I would have thought I'd have got a little pat on the back. But most of them, a lot of them, were really upset at what I had to say, which is also fine. Which goes back to the point of if my people will repent, and my people will, um, it's a it's a time for choosing right now. It really is. There is no more fence riding. I think we all see how our country's going, how culture is. How do you ride the middle of anything right now? Is it even possible?
So it's interesting to me that it sounds like the majority of the backlash you've experienced has been from within the church. The
A
body.
hundred percent. Yeah, yeah. Because the atheists and the you know your run of the mill wicked guy could care less what I'm talking about. you know, Isn't that funny though that they came at me swinging like that? You can find them. Go look it up on YouTube or Rumble. You'll find a ton of them. I watched a couple of them and I went, man, okay. I didn't expect that. I told my dad about it, who's been a preacher since he was 19. He's now 72.
Wow.
He preaches in prisons. Preached on the streets of Mardi Gras for 34 years in a row. He used to go to the Indianapolis 500 and preach up there, all kinds of big events like that. And he said, well, I'm not surprised. He said, I'm not surprised. He said, you know, there's a lot of good preachers and there's a lot that are kind of shaky. And then some of them just straight up aren't good at all. And that is a realization that you have. Not everybody's cut from the same cloth.
So you've always been a believer your whole life. You've been a Christian. Have you always been this fervent in your faith?
No way. Absolutely not. I think if anybody said yes to that, they'd be lying to you. Yeah, I mean, I was the definition of a prodigal son. I just told you about who my dad is and how he went about things. Can you imagine your 18, 19-year-old son, instead of going to college, which I had a full ride at a big school. Instead of doing that, I get in a van pulling a trailer with a bunch of guys who are in their early 30s and go play country music all over America in Holiday Inn lounges, casinos, county rodeos, you name it, honky tonk, Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana. I mean, he was not real happy about that. And then to make matters worse, I was really good at it and I had a whole lot of success at it. And then I sold millions of records doing that. And so at that point, I'm just kind of running on my own thing. Everything was, I want to do well so I can make more money. I want to do well so I can stick another number one plaque on my wall. Or I want to do well so I get respect from the music industry or whatever. I love country music. I studied it as a kid. I mean, that's all I worked on was that. And I still love it. Um, but it was the thing I worshiped. I was worshiping that and for a very long time. And so at some point, I think probably after I got married, when my kids were born, I was like, this don't work. I am really upsetting the boss if I keep this mindset. If I keep that as the thing I worship, this is not going to end well. And at one point, I could pretty much feel him just kind of pulling away, like, all right, big boy, you take it. You know what's best. You go do your thing. And when I felt that starting to happen, I went, okay, I'm done. And I started cutting things out. He started cutting things out, and I still got stuff to cut out. I mean, I always will. I think we all always will.
Yeah.
But recently, when I think COVID probably is when it stepped to a new gear with me because I saw the extent of the lies that were being perpetrated on people. The threats that were coming down on people. If you don't do this, then we're going to do this to you. I mean, real tyranny breaking out in the United States of America, land of the free and home of the brave. Here we are looking right at it. And I realized we're a lot closer to the bad stuff happening than I realized. And I got a lot more serious about it during that window. And that's when these songs started coming to me. I wrote another one called Earth to God. Go look that one up. Earth to God, Revelation, songs like that. And no, I'm a very unlikely guy to be delivering that message, but I think maybe that's part of the reason why it's effective. Because if a normal guy like me is saying that, it's not a preacher, it's not a theologian, it's not some fancy guy somewhere in a big building. It's a country guy that sings country music. Don't you think? I mean,
Yeah.
I think that adds some validity to it that just a regular old guy is talking about these things.
Well, and your music video is very on the nose. I mean, you have a literal there's a spiritual warfare going on in your music video. When you were creating this song, did you experience any spiritual warfare or feel like something was preventing you from getting this song out?
Um, I wanted to put it out immediately. So I wrote the song in November of 2023 and I shot the video in early February of 24. I wanted to put it out the end of February. I mean, I was like, let's go, let's go. Because I knew what this thing was, and I was couldn't believe what it sounded like and what that video looked like. And so I was gonna do that. And then I felt like he hit the brakes a little bit. And I'm like, what? You know what? You don't want there's not time to put it out yet? And then I just felt like I need to get on Tucker Carlson and talk about this. I wonder if it needs to be on a massive platform, because at that point, other networks had heard the song and they were not going to allow me to sing it. First song ever in my career that they would not have me on to sing the new song, probably because it says things like millstones around their necks. That's one of the lines. Like it is calling it out for what it is. It is a brutal lyric, but it's pulled right off the pages of the book. That's what it says is going to happen. It talks about, you know, the earth going through wrath at that point, and these people, their time is their it's tick tock tick for them. The clock's ticking down. So the networks didn't want me to come play it. I thought, well, is that the other side's way of just trying to shut this song down so it never gets heard? And I thought, I bet Tucker would do it. And so I know Tucker a little bit, you know. So I texted him the song without the video, just texted him the song. I said, hey, give this a listen and tell me what you think about it. He hits me back about 10 minutes later and he said, what did I just listen to? What is this?
Yeah.
And so I gave him a little more info. And then I sent him the video and I said, the networks won't let me come on and promote this. Any chance I could come on your show and talk about the book of Revelation? And he said, absolutely. How's July the 12th? This was February.
Yeah.
How's July the 12th? I said, that'll work. So I went in my calendar. I went July 12th, Tucker. I called my team. I said, I'm putting the song out July 12th. And they all went, you're going to wait 5 months, 4 months to put this thing out? I said, yep, that's what I'm going to do. And so I just sat on it for months and months and months. And then I think the timing was absolutely perfect. I mean, 2 days before I did Tucker Carlson, Trump got shot. 2 days before that. So everybody saw his head turn at the last second and the bullet go flying by. And even Trump has admitted, he said, that was God's hand that turned my head. I mean, that thing should have hit me right in the skull. So we were fresh with all that going on. And then here comes this interview with Tucker. I mean, how could I have ever timed that out? Yeah. Of course not. Could you have timed that out? Absolutely not.
You've been in the entertainment industry for a long time. I want to get your thoughts on why they seem so bent on glorifying evil and the occult, sexual experimentation, suicide ideation, the demonic. You've talked about this. What do you think accounts for this?
Well, they create and promote what they're possessed with.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Simple as that. So if you're possessed with something, that is what's going to come out of you. You are what you eat, right? If they are possessed with wickedness and they are beholden to wickedness, then they want to exalt wickedness. That's who they are. So they want the whole world to see that. They're much more proud to exalt their wickedness than we are to exalt righteousness most of the time. I mean, they'll put it right in your face and it's horrible. I mean, you think people would be embarrassed to show stuff like that, wouldn't you? I mean, walking out on stage in front of God and everybody doing these horrific things on national television and around the world. Look at the Olympics, that thing that just happened. They're mocking the Last Supper, worldwide TV on that one. So they create and they promote what mirrors what's on the inside of them. Simple as that. Mm-hmm. I don't know how else to answer it, because why would that be a marketing plan? We could market this song any one of 100 ways. Oh, I know. Let's go out on stage and worship the devil. That's the best way to sell records. Yeah. I mean, that's how they do it. We got to call it for what it is. You got to stop dancing around this stuff. Call it for what it is. Name it. Call it out and go, I know what that is. That's a bunch of people worshiping the devil on stage. Why do they do that? Because they're doing the will of their father. They're doing what they're told to do. It exalts who they worship. It's a sick thought, but that's what it is.
And that's terrifying because these are the people that, I mean, they run Hollywood. These are what our children are seeing on the screen.
Yeah. Disney, you look at all this stuff Disney's shoved in front of our kids all these years, and on. It's everywhere. And so again, that's the point of, I think, why this song Revelation hit like a hammer, is because it just went straight at it. I mean, straight at it. It was not poetic. We didn't sneak up on it. It comes out and just boom, hits it right in the nose. And I think anything short of that is not going to be effective. Mm-hmm. And if you go back and look at the examples we have to go by, Jesus himself, when he saw blasphemy happening, for instance, in the temple, he walked in there. They turned it into, they were doing business out of the temple. He walked in there, cracked a whip, flipped over the tables, ran them all out. Okay. And that's our example. Yes. So if you see that kind of stuff, you were supposed to engage that. You're not supposed to hide in the corner and go, oh, that's terrible. I'm just going to forget I ever saw that. That is not how we're supposed to do it. And again, I think that's why you're seeing it run absolutely rampant right now, because for many decades, Christians have just sat around and let this stuff go.
You're right. Or secluded ourselves to where there's very much an us versus them mentality.
Yeah, but we're supposed to engage them. Mm-hmm. We're supposed to engage them. I mean, did David try to talk Goliath out of staring down the Israelites, or did David go grab a rock, hit him in the head, then cut his head off? Yeah. He engaged it. And everybody else was doing what you said, which is try to seclude, try to hide, try to just hope it'd go away. He was never going to go away. Goliath wasn't going to go away. He was going to stand there until the Israelites either left or they were going to run in on him when they were so scared that they would have just massacred the Israelites that day. But David shows up, the least of them, a teenage kid who's a shepherd boy, and he says, I'll take this stupid giant down. Watch this. And wham, hits him in the head with a rock, pulls Goliath's own sword out of his sheath, picks it up, and lops his head off right in front of the Philistines and the Israelites. And then the Israelites had the courage to run in and destroy them. So Christians forget the examples that have been set for us to follow. Christians are not supposed to be pushovers or weak-kneed or no spine. Christians are supposed to be the most bold, fierce people in the world. They're supposed to be the ones that will walk right into it. And we need to readopt that tactic, don't you think? I mean, I hope this song and some of the interviews I'm doing as just a regular guy maybe inspire some people to stand up and go, you know what, John, can you imagine the incoming? Like you said earlier, oh yeah, there's a lot of incoming, but that's a good thing. That's how you know you had some impact. And I think people get afraid these days. I'm going to get called bad names, or I might lose a friend, or somebody's going to think something about me. They're going to think I'm weird or crazy or whatever. Well, if that's what you're concerned with, that's the problem.
What are some issues that you think Christians should be more concerned about that maybe we aren't paying enough attention to?
I mean, there's so many issues out there right now. One of the most egregious ones is how they come after our kids.
Yeah.
I mean, that is they are so arrogant in how they come at them now, whether it be in the schools, on the television, wherever they're at. They're just constantly coming after them, and they're proud of the fact that they're coming after them. And I think as Christians and as parents, that is when you got to go remember the part where it says you'd be better off to have a millstone tied around your neck and cast into the sea than to ever cause one of these little ones to stumble. Uses the word to even mess them up at all, much less put your hands on them, hurt them, traffic them, really, really do destruction to them. He didn't even get into that. He said to cause them to stumble at all, you'd be better off to die, is what he said. To have a stone around your neck and throw you into the ocean. Well, that's why in Revelations it says millstones around their necks, because, and I'm talking about pedophiles and people that traffic kids and people that abuse kids in these horrible ways. But it's now an epidemic, not only in our country but around the world. If you don't have enough gumption to stand up and fight on an issue that affects you as an adult, then at least have enough to stand up and fight on behalf of the kids.
Well, John, what are some Bible verses that give you strength as I don't want to be negative, but I feel like you're going to get a whole lot more backlash being
Oh,
so.
I'm sure I will. I'm sure. I'm sure I will. I think one of the greatest ones is uh, "He who is in me is greater than he who is in the world." You know, the one that if you got him living in you, that's, I mean, you are plugged in, bro. I mean, you are plugged in. And so, you know, it also says the Lord does not give us a spirit of fear. So if you feel afraid of something, that is not him giving you that. That does not come from him. He has no fear. Fear is not in his vocabulary. It's not in his makeup. So if you feel fear, which we all do, you've got to recognize that and say, that's not good. And then go back to the ultimate and say, can you get this fear off my back? Because I'm pretty sure you want me to go do that. But that's scary. I don't know if I can do that. And he will. He'll pull the fear off of you and give you courage, and then go right at him. I think that's one of the things that stop Christians from doing what they know they should be doing or saying is literally fear. They're afraid. And again, that it says he does not give us a spirit of fear. So if you feel afraid, recognize that did not come from him and ask him to get it away from you.
I love
That's
that.
pretty simple. All this stuff is simple. You don't need to be a theologian to understand this stuff. He laid it out very simply. A, B, C. Here's how it works. All we got to do is engage and have enough courage to run straight at it.
As a pastor's kid, what is one of the best lessons you've learned from your father, that you've passed down to your children and shared with others?
Man, there's a lot of those. You know, he always raised me to know this truth, that um, do not fear the one who can only kill your body. Fear the one who can kill your body and your soul. And so the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. What a sentence. Let me put it this way. How much fear of the Lord do you think exists in America right now?
Yeah, none.
Okay. So therefore there's no fear of him. So how much wisdom do you see on display in America?
Mm-hmm.
None. You see rampant foolishness and idiocy every time you turn around, because there is no fear of him. So those are big things he laid on me right there. I mean, it's like, hey, if you just know those two things, uh, always kind of judge yourself on where you at with that. Like if you're out running wild and you got no fear of him at all, you're not going to have any wisdom. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of the wisdom. So the lack of fear of the Lord is the beginning of stupidity. It is idiocy, foolishness, destruction, all those things. So it was stuff like that. And then he didn't just say it and preach it. I watched him live it out. I mean, it takes a lot of gusto to stand out on the French Quarter during Mardi Gras for 4 days for 34 years in a row with a guitar strapped around your neck and a little speaker, singing and preaching to the gay pride parade coming by or whoever's coming by. And they're doing all manner of things back to him. And he just kept standing there and kept doing it year after year after year. I mean, what an example! I'll never be up to that level, but quite an example set. And guess what? He's intact. He's intact. He knows that when he was told to do something, he did it.
John, what's at stake if the church fails to speak out, fails to step up? What does the future look like if we fail to fulfill this biblical mandate?
Wrath,
Mhm.
wrath, mega punishment. Um, People think that well, America's a Christian nation. We were founded on biblical principles. That is true. That is not a shield for us in 2024. That 248 years ago, we were founded on biblical principles, and all those things. That is not a shield. I mean, the Israelites back in the day, I mean, they're making golden calves and worshiping it while Moses is up on the mountain getting the 10 commandments. And he comes back down and he's like, what are you people doing down here? They're worshiping an idol. And he got so mad, he throws the tablets down on the ground, and then he got in trouble for losing his temper. And then right after that, God sent him out in the wilderness forever. I mean, so what America's got coming, if Christians don't turn around, and I mean right now turn around, is I think there's a lot of hurt in our future, a lot of things coming. That's what it says. I mean, again, to that verse, if my people who are called by my name will repent and humble themselves and turn from their wicked ways, I'll come and heal their land. By default, that means if you don't do those things, he will not come and heal your land. Somebody said to me the other day, I believe Donald Trump, I believe God's got his hand on Donald Trump and he's going to be the next president and he's going to fix all this mess. I said, well, I would sure like to see that. I said, but understand the other part of that is that if he doesn't become the president and it's Kamala Harris or whoever they want to put in there is the president, he also did that.
Yeah.
It says in the Bible, he puts kings into power and he removes kings from power. He used Nebuchadnezzar back in the day to take down Daniel's country. Remember that one? Daniel's sitting in there with all his buddies, and God comes to Daniel, or an angel comes to Daniel and says, hey, Babylon's going to invade you guys. And when they do not resist, because if you resist them, you'll die. You will not survive it. Let them take you. Daniel goes, okay. And so they come in and they cuff Daniel and all his friends. They castrate them all. They drag them down to a dungeon somewhere, basically starve them to death. And over time, Daniel goes on to become the second in command of the entire empire underneath Nebuchadnezzar. But they went through horrible things because Israel had gotten so far off the path that God used Nebuchadnezzar as a punishment. So Christians only like the one side of it. Most Christians, I don't want to generalize, but they only want to take into account the good stuff. Well, if God's going to put Donald Trump in the White House, well, he very well may. I would love to see that. But if he doesn't put him in the White House, he put whoever is in the White House in the White House.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? That's the actual truth of it. You could say, no, the devil put him in the White House. Well, who do you think allows the devil to do whatever he does? He doesn't. He has no authority. God uses those situations, always has, to bring about what he wants to bring about. So I'm hoping we get to avoid that, because I hope this country, the Christians in this country, stand back up and are heard and counted once again.
Well, John, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I just am so thankful for this opportunity to talk to you, and so thankful for your voice, because it's so needed. And I've worked in this industry for a long time, and even a lot of the pastors I talk to, I just get so discouraged by the lack of courage to speak about these issues. So
why do you think that is? You interview them all. What do you think's the problem?
I think it's fear. I think they don't want to alienate people from coming to listening to their message, from tithing to the church. I think it's all because of fear, which is usually traced back to money in some way.
Yep.
So
always has been. I mean, the Pharisees and Sadducees were all about the money.
Yep.
That's why they had a real problem with Jesus, because he was saying things that they would not say, and that they didn't want him saying either, because it was making people, he'd have 5,000 people out in the field and there's only 50 in the temple. Mm-hmm. They're like, we got to get rid of this Jesus character. He's messing up our deal. Yep. So, I mean, right. So they're out there, but again, if you go to a church like that, where if your preacher never says anything from the pulpit that makes you uncomfortable, convicts your heart, sends you home going, wow, I need to think long and hard about what I just heard in that room. If they never do that, you need to get out of there and go somewhere else. Well, they will tell you the truth about it, and you should be uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable things to talk about. I mean, I don't like thinking about it either, but it says what it says. You don't get to cherry pick the parts you like and leave out the parts you don't.